Monster Hunter! It's my favorite franchise in all the world.
But what about it makes it your favorite, irrelevant YouTuber?
I hear you desperately asking because my opinion matters so deeply to you. 2 words. The monsters! But to give a more detailed answer, the love the developers have for these games is practically oozing out of every pixel on the screen. In no other aspect is this more evident than in the titular monsters. And I should certainly hope so. They're half the title, after all. Each one is designed with an ecological role in mind, which informs their design, how they fight, and now that the games have finally left the DS systems, we can even see them minding their own business when they're left alone. I love this stuff. When I was a kid, I absorbed every iota of information about animals I could get my hands on. New discoveries are still being made every day, but I still hunger for more. Movies like Avatar, not that one, the one with the blue people with the slutty waists. There we go. Movies like Avatar and books like A Natural History of Dragons have a big focus on detailed creature designs that have a real function within their worlds. As much as I appreciate their efforts, there's something about Monster Hunter's monsters that just hit different. Maybe there's something in the design philosophy that just speaks to me. Maybe it's getting to live in the world with these monsters. Maybe it's the extreme violence. Whatever it is, these games have an iron grip on me, and you had better believe I am squeezing back. But could I do it better? No. But, as a college-aged artist, I have nothing to my name but pride, so I'm going to try anyway. Welcome to Monster Mender! Yeah, I know that title sucks, but it's all I could think of. Help me out if you've got any better ideas. In this series, I'm going to cover every monster in the mainline games, giving each a brief overview and talking about my thoughts on them. Then, I'm going to approach redesigning each monster in 3 different ways. First, I'll be leaving most of the developer's final product untouched. I'll only be making minor changes, bringing them more in line with how I would approach the same design. Second, a bit more of a divergence from the original. I'll take the same basic idea and take it in the direction I might if I were handed that prompt. Things like movesets, behaviors, and in rare cases even elements might see changes here. Finally, I'll be taking a further step away from what we see in-game. I'll be boiling down the monster to only the parts that I think are most central to its essence, and giving myself freedom to do whatever I want with the rest. Like before, new elements and movesets are fair game, but even bigger changes can be made here too, like monster class, for example. With these redesigns, I'll be considering the monsters' roles in the games, so my favorites won't all be the newest Elder level monsters who could definitely 1v1 Fatalis, and my least favorites won't be demoted to punching bags, as cathartic as that would be. I may need to add more stipulations as the series progresses, but I think I've been rambling for long enough without providing you any of that sweet, sweet content, so let's get into it. On the surface, it might look a little basic, and that's because it kinda is. Velocidrome is, essentially, a blue raptor with giant claws, a beak, and a crest that sort of looks like a rooster's comb on its head, that also serves as a sign of its status as the dominant male of its pack. It sports some stylish black tiger stripes, and striking red accents on the parts a player should watch out for. Its attacks are all fairly simple, lunges, bites, pounces, although its pinning attack is interesting, since it calls in its Velociprey underlings to maul you before it starts to dig in itself. I really like this pin in particular, because it actually aligns with how we think real dromaeosaurs hunted prey, pinning down things with their stabbing toe claws before they started eating them alive. There's honestly not a whole lot else to go over with Velocidrome, so how does the simplicity work out for it? In my opinion, not too bad! Sure, it suffers from early game raptor syndrome, it only has like 3 moves, none of which are super unique, and it's pretty easy to bully if you know your way around your weapon. Last time it appeared, I felt that its age was really showing, lackluster animations and strange proportions, but I think with the appearance of Velociprey and Sunbreak, with a little bit of a facelift, their boss could actually be a really solid monster. Maybe I'm just a sucker for a fun dinosaur, but as it is, I think Velocidrome is pretty striking. It's a vibrant, non-threatening blue, suitable for its slot as an early fight, It manages to pop without feeling out of place in its blue-green forest home. Those splashes of red show you what to pay attention to, especially that big red crest that serves as a huge sign that says,
Do it! Do it! Come on, kill me, I'm here!
Breaking that crest gives you a nice little bit of feedback that you're doing well in the fight, and the sharp contrast and shape language add a sense of danger back into this otherwise kind of unthreatening monster. Its giant blade claws sticking out of a fleshy mitten hand are in equal measures cool and silly, although the Sunbreak update exchanges these for wispy witch fingers. I think both are great. I appreciate a more naturalistic look on my monsters, but I can't deny that having meat cleaver hands was pretty cool. I decided on something of a compromise. I gave my Velocidrome fingers, so it can now hug its children without cutting them. But I made its claws huge and bulky like before, so they still look like weapons for slashing their prey. When you're making an iconic design, it's usually best to kiss it. Keep it simple, stupid. However, as the series progresses, more detailed designs are more common, so I chose to add a touch of flair with some flag-like plates on the tail. I imagine my Velocidrome uses them to help its pack stick together during a chase through thick foliage. Hopefully that helps it feel a little more up to date. I also chose to modify the proportions a little. There is a very valid charm to the huge head and feet of the original design, but proportions are generally more realistic these days, and a better balanced body should help it feel sleek and fast. I think I was able to strike a balance between simplicity and purposeful complexity here. Onto the second approach. The prompt I was working with here was that I needed to make a raptor monster that looked fast and sharp, but not too threatening. I tried a couple of things for this design before I settled on this direction for it. Originally, I was trying to avoid adding feathers, because it seems like every single reinterpretation of the drome design slaps on some feathers, and I don't think it's really necessary. However, I had some ideas I hope will set it apart, even though I kinda took the easy route. I wanted to build this design more strongly around kicking moves, but to keep it distinct from the macaw, I intend them to be more like a secretary bird than a kangaroo. To achieve this, I used the feathers to bulk out the body and thighs, while leaving the head bare to form a triangle that points towards the feet. I added tough-looking armor plates to the legs and killer claw to beef them up and make them look dangerous. On the tail, I added a great big feather fan. Part of this was to reflect this feature that you find on real dromaeosaurs, but also, I imagine that this Velocidrome's animations have it strutting around like a giant rooster with its tail curled up high behind it, so I wanted to invoke those big tail feathers. Instead of giving it wings for its arms, I thought I would turn the feathers there into quills to harken back to the Freddy Krueger mittens of the original while keeping the hands functional. I had added a lot of dinosaur influence to this design, so to hopefully pull it away from just being a fantasy dinosaur, when I was making the head I took inspiration from snakes. It's loosely based on the really sharp-looking head of the shoelace viper, and I gave it big eyes to match. The crest is pulling in that rooster influence again, trying to look like a dangerous version of the comb. A lot of wyverns in Monster Hunter actually have mammal-like ears. I think that's a really neat detail, so I chose to add those on to make it feel more like a fantasy mishmash of animals. I struggled with the pattern for a long time. It's one of my weakest design skills, I think. And unfortunately, they don't pop as much as I would have liked once I layered on all the rendering, and overall it's probably the weakest of the designs in this video, but I still like it. Feel free to make any suggestions for any of these designs in the comments. I'll try to keep your input in mind going forward. With the third approach, I reduced the concept to 2 words: Sharp Raptor. I decided that the shapes feathers offer were just too good to pass up, but to avoid just doing the same thing as I did with the second approach, I thought it would be interesting if this Velocidrome didn't actually have real feathers, just shells and scales that look and act a bit like them. This interpretation is a little like a bird wyvern version of Tobikadachi. It likes to climb trees and ricochet off of terrain, then use its scaled wings to glide at high speeds towards its target. It even does a lot of its most dangerous attacks with its thickly armored tail. The big talons are more for finding footholds in rocks and trees, but they're still sharp enough to do serious damage when Velocidrome comes soaring at you at full speed. Its thorny scales give it the ability to easily grip onto rough surfaces and wait for a perfect opportunity for an ambush. At higher ranks, I thought it might be cool to give it a fake-out move. Sometimes, when it's diving at you, it can stop its momentum with its wings, then make a wide sweep with its barbed tail to hit a wider area. Its crests are using the scale feather shapes, but inspired by the triple-horned Ceratosaurus. I just can't help myself, I love using that visual, but I'll try not to overdo it. Out of all of these, I think this could look like a real monster the series might add in the future as it expands on how monsters interact with the world around them. Well, that concludes my Velocidrome designs. What did you think? Were any of these improvements? Would you like to see any of them as their own monsters? Fall for this engagement bait and tell me in the comments. If there's a monster you want to see next, suggest it there too. For now, I'm planning to go in rough order of introduction to the series, but I am nothing if not susceptible to peer pressure.
While you're down there, concuss that subscribe button, heartbreak that like, and brutalize
The other 30 buttons YouTube wants you to push now.
Thanks for tuning in.
I'll see you next time.